On Stage podcast with Chris Robert. Hello, welcome to another podcast. Her name is Natalia Sticko, mezzo soprano. I'm just blown away by her voice. Let's introduce her now. Here is Natalia Sticko.
Hello, Chris. Thank you so much for
Hello.
the great introduction. I'm actually honored. Thank you.
I'm sorry about that. I said Natalie, I think I said. I'm sorry about that.
No worries at all. As long as it is comfortable for you to pronounce, you can go for any name. And fun fact, actually, I go by Nat often. Whenever a person feels it's too complicated to pronounce my name, I just prefer to go by Nat.
No, because I know that the JA at the end is usually pronounced ya, like in Russia. It's ya.
Yes, that's correct. There is an issue like how my name is transcribed in Latin, and then like whenever you change your documents into another country documents, so they kept the J. That's why some people they say it's Natalja. So there is another fun fact, like for example, even Latvia, because in Latvian it's like spelled IJA. So some of the border control guys in UK they say Latvija. So don't worry at all. It's normal, and like we can't like understand how every language is spelled and read. So
So I suppose the anglicized version of your name is Natalie, or is it Natasha?
I would go by Natalie probably.
Okay. So this is awesome. I'm very happy that you were able to join us on the stage so quickly. I was actually spending part of the morning listening to your beautiful music. Um, you have a wonderful song there called My Love, which I love so much, and Crimea River. And I'm like, oh, she did a version of that. That's amazing. What's the backstory? How did you know that you wanted to become a singer and not only a soprano, but a mezzo soprano? Give us a history on that.
um, I will try to be brief, as I always say, but sometimes it's challenging. And to start my story, I would actually give a little hint. And there is a saying, or there is a myth that a mezzo soprano is a lazy soprano. And yes, but I'm going to try to break this myth, and I'm going to try to prove you that it's not really true. Uh, I started singing probably at the age of 3 or 4, or maybe even earlier, but I just don't remember that. And throughout all my life, I was very much impacted by different kinds of music. So I can't say I was just impacted by opera or I was just impacted by pop. No. If you look at my playlist, you will find anything starting ranging from baroque music and ending up with modern DJs like Armin van Buuren. So I'm very, very versatile even in the playlists which I create for myself. And probably the first music which really impacted my choice as a profession. I mean, I can't say it was a profession back then, it was just a hobby. It was probably the folk songs, and the folk songs, both Latvian folk songs and Russian folk songs.
Mhm.
Because I grew up in the USSR, so first 5 years of my life, for 5 years, yeah, I spent in this transition period, right between becoming independent country and like still sticking to the USSR tradition. So that's why I can say I was impacted by both cultures. And whenever you ask me whether I'm 100% Russian, 100% Latvian, I will tell I'm neither of, because I just took the best out of both cultures, which I got introduced to as a kid. And when I was 5 years old, my mom she made a decision to send me to a music school to play the piano, because to my mind, that's a great way to overall develop the brain of the child to make him or her play the musical instrument, because there is like this small motorics and everything. So it's never uh, a matter of whether a kid will become eventually a classical musician or not. It's just
Yeah.
more for a well developed. And that was a fun fact. Whenever a girl was born in a Soviet family, there was a very huge probability that she's gonna end up in a music school. So that's why probably I was also I was like miserable or happy to get introduced to playing the piano. And yes, that's probably how it all started. So it wasn't really singing, it was playing an instrument. I was classically trained, so I never, before reaching probably 9 or 10 years old, I never tried myself playing or even singing something modern. So it was just starting with very, very classical style of training or music or being introduced to music. So with this whole bunch of lessons as like musical history and like solfeggio and like so on, so on.
Oh.
But right, that's why I'm saying, and probably whenever you are having this type of basis, you are able to pick up any genre afterwards, easy peasy, as I say. That's probably uh, like in like when you learn a language, of course you start with alphabet, and like with music it's the same thing. So you start with classics, and for me, yes, that's probably something. If you ask my opinion whether a kid should be starting with classics, I would say yes, because that's how you know how it all started. And then depending on that, you can pick up any genre you would like to pursue afterwards. Yeah, and like regarding when I started really taking lessons professionally, I would say it's not professionally, just when I started like being trained, it probably like teen years, 13 or 14. I think it's 14. Yeah. And also a very important fact that I still consider when the kids didn't have their puberty yet, it's
Mhm.
kind of challenging to train them. So of course you can have fun with them. You can learn some simple songs. You just make sure they enjoy the music. You just make sure as a coach that they are not annoyed by you. So they just want to pursue that. So you just don't kill their wish to sing or to do something else, right?
That's right.
And yeah, so when I was like 14, so I started taking lessons, and that's why I'm very grateful to my first vocal teacher. Uh, should I name the name? It's Agris Pucha, just in case if he's watching. Yeah, because he literally introduced me again to different types of music. So yes, we started, of course, with classics with him, but he was the first one who made me explore a new genre. So we took some American songs from the American Great Songbook. We took some jazz. So it wasn't just, singing arias or singing lead or singing chamber music. No, we just explored different things. So he never pushed me as a voice coach in terms of, oh, there is the technique we need just to do exercises. No, we were just having fun. We were just exploring different genres and exploring the capacity of my voice, what I can do, what I could do back then. And yeah, so back then I was a high soprano, very high soprano, and I could sing Queen of the Night. And that's why I'm saying it's very dangerous when the kid can sing some famous aria being still a kid, because afterwards, whenever you pass the puberty and you get older and your voice cords, they're a little bit getting more mature, same as you do. And then you lose this opportunity, and then you lose this ability. And then it's like, especially for boys, it's often a huge trauma overall and a huge disappointment that it's not the same anymore, and you have to start your path from scratch. So yeah, that's why I'm telling you honestly, I was lucky. So nobody abused my voice back then. We were just exploring different genres. And yeah, when I had to actually choose what university I have to go to or the college I had to go to, I didn't have to start from scratch. So I knew that I have a little bit different voice now. So I got more mature. But remembering those basics, I knew that whatever I choose forward, I will be able to eventually accomplish. But actually, I didn't end up in the conservatory after my high school because I still was told that I still need to give it more time, even like being an 18-year-old. And yeah, so first degree I got was a bachelor in IT engineering. But yeah, I mean, I never stopped singing. I never stopped exploring the capacity of my voice or the bandwidth I had. So that was probably a lifesaver for me that I didn't lose my young years trying to make a career, because very often when a person had a great start and like after 10, 15 years it's game over. So that's why I always say whatever happened, it happened for good. And yeah, so now should I name my age? Yeah, like approaching to my 40-year-old birthday, I can say that like I'm grateful that it happened like that. So now I can just live the life I want and sing what I want and explore different genres and not worrying actually about what I will be doing in 10 years. So
Yeah, I noticed that like your voice is exquisite. Um, I noticed that you did a song for Requiem for for Soldier. Tell us about that one. How did that one come to be?
Um, we were in the middle of the quarantine in 2020,
Hmm.
and it was extremely challenging to do anything apart from sitting in your bedroom and singing. Let's be honest. And I wanted to make a dedication to all the military people, because this topic and this sphere is very close to me. I'm actually married to an Air Force veteran. My son, he is dreaming of becoming a fighter pilot, so he's obsessed, and he was into all that since he was 3 years old. So my stepson, he is in army, so he was in Slovakia and recently came back helping out the refugees. And both of my grandparents, they were killed during World War II, and my grandmothers, they had to raise their family all by themselves. And for me, yes, this is a very sensitive topic, and that's something I would like to help as much as I can. But I'm not a soldier myself, and I can't help, in just taking the weapons and go fighting. So I came up with an idea to record a song. And actually, later I used the song to collect money to helping the families in Ukraine who lost a soldier in the battle, or have soldiers fighting. And with the help of organization TAPTS, they are collecting the money for all those families. So whenever this song is streamed, like all the streaming money goes directly to this organization. So just trying to help as much as I can, because it's very devastating what's going on with those two countries.
I know that's really devastating, and just keeping up with it, I'm like, well, it's terrible. War is terrible, and there's a lot of people trying to help out those in Ukraine and those who lost their families. I'm so happy that you came up with this Requiem for Soldier to help these poor families, because we had, like, I'm from Toronto, Canada, and we've
Mhm.
had Ukrainians actually show up just around in our area, and have nowhere to go. And this one woman, um, she showed up with her daughter in the airport because her husband and her son are fighting in Ukraine. Like, they're fighting, and they had nowhere to go, and so they went to a Ukraine Facebook forum and said, "We're stuck here. We don't know what to do." And they were, hysterical. And then some guy just read it and took them in. It was a matter of days, and they're living with them, and the couple. And it's awful being displaced from your country. It's a terrible thing, and losing people too. So how did you determine that you were a mezzo soprano? Like, I've heard the difference between alto, a mezzo, and a mezzo soprano, and it's totally different. How did you just suddenly say, "Hey, oh," and then you went down a little bit octave, and "Hey, I'm a mezzo soprano."
Well, actually, it's a never-ending story in trying to
Yeah.
really determine my voice type, or Fach, as it's called in German.
Hmm.
Um, but probably the first indicator was when I was in my 20s, and I was a little bit lost myself trying to understand what path I should pursue. So whether it's a soprano or whether it's a mezzo. So what happened is, like, as I mentioned, when I was 14, 15, I had a free high range. I could sing Queen of the Night, right? And then it disappeared. And then I was struggling with the high range as I never did before. It was just gone.
Mm.
So that's why for me it was devastating, of course, because as I mentioned, you did a lot as a kid, as a teen,
Hmm.
and then suddenly we have to start from scratch. So we had a doctor and a medical doctor, MD, in my home country. So he made the whole research. His name is Dean Sumarex. I know, like, those names, like, you can name them, and if they hear them, like, but listening to the show, that's great. But otherwise, it just, it's a different country and different MDs around. Yeah, so he had a research. He made a research. I think it was a part of his PhD thesis or something. So to determine the type of the voice based on the voice cords, based on the capacity of your throat. So there are some kind of measurements which he does in order to help you determine who you really are. So yeah, so I showed up and just help me out. Just please indicate who I am, who I really am. And yeah, so he was probably the first who said that, yeah, so you are a mezzo 100% and even close to a contralto or alto. Yeah, that was like very, very strange and very different. And I was like, okay, but like as a kid, I was a surprise. He's like, yeah, but voice cord, they mature same as your body does. So especially after puberty, it's like even though for girls it's not that crazy as for boys, but still it changes. And yeah, and then when I so that was like when I was still doing my bachelor's in IT, and then when I was actually getting into the Conservatory or Musical Academy of Latvia, yeah, so I was getting in as a mezzo. So as a low mezzo, I was singing all those all those heavy mezzo repertoire, which actually I was later told it's also not very good for your voice. So you have to be very moderate. So not like, define 100%, oh, I'm a mezzo, I'm going to sing all those hard wordy pieces. No, you don't do that. But the fun fact that now I'm working with my Italian voice coach who knew me for 10 years. We were working with him back in Latvian National Opera, and he was working with me as a mezzo back then. So now he's expanding, and he's probably trying out all full capacity. So we are jumping and we are trying to dig into the dramatic soprano repertoire. And based on what I have heard and based on the singers nowadays, honestly, among us, it's often very difficult to distinguish between a dramatic soprano and dramatic mezzo. A dramatic soprano may sound darker than a mezzo, happens. But for example, a dramatic mezzo will never be able to sustain the high range as well as a soprano does. So now that's probably is an experiment, even though he believes I'm a soprano 100%. But I treat it as an experiment. I treat it as like probably when you are in the gym, you try a heavier weight and you are able to tell whether you have strength or whether your body is getting adapted to that. So, yeah, so now we are trying to figure it out whether I am able to sustain the high range. I have bandwidth for this repertoire. And yeah, so whatever happens, as I always say, I can always go to back to mezzo. So it's not like something, I forget and I forget for good. No. But yeah, I mean, it's always important to grow and to find new challenges. My main goal out of that is not to lose what I have as a mezzo, so this low range and dark voice, which doesn't disappear, thank God. It's getting even better, but also to be able to have a free high range and, upon necessity, to be able to dig into also this repertoire. I know some people say it's tricky, and we have bad examples of Maria Callas who was singing everything, but that's why I'm saying I still have common sense and I try to understand whether it does good or does bad. And so far, it just makes the voice better. So I can't complain. And still, when it comes to crossover, when it comes to pop, my love, pop song and everything, still, of course, I sing as a mezzo, So soprano and dramatic soprano, it's only when I take an opera piece, when I learn an aria, or like learn a part. So it's just for opera. It's not for any other genres. For any other genres, I use the voice. I probably started to exploring when I was 18. So yeah, very brief.
That's awesome. So let's go back to when you mentioned, like, you put the word dark in there. Why
Mhm.
do you, what does it mean when you add dark to that?
It's the color of the voice, right? So that's probably I just want to take like Lady Gaga. We take Lady Gaga. You see, like, so she has this dark voice when she sings. Like, it's the color. It's like the hormones. It's like what else I can say. It's just like something which distinguishes you. So like your fingerprint, right? So this is like the color. It's the darkened color is it means like it's something which you hear this person and it's this singer, right? I'm just trying to find like a light voice. Okay, Sarah Brightman, she probably has a lighter voice, like in comparison to Lady Gaga. I'm just trying to find somebody who everybody knows. That's all. And yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And it's kind of very tricky, right? Because in my home country, they sometimes people over darken and they make it artificial, right? And you say, oh,
Mhm.
it's a mezzo, but for example, and this is like very difficult for a teacher, especially to distinguish your real voice without you amplifying, without you making chemistry in your voice, without you imitating something. And this is what's challenging because sometimes you hear a singer and it's dark, but for example, I can feel it's not a real voice, and especially with mezzos, it's super tricky nowadays because it's easier to find a soprano, especially a light soprano, than to find a mezzo. And sopranos who want to get hired, who want to get casted, they just do this artificial thing in their throat to sound darker. And there are sayings that, like, by way how deep you talk, how high is your speaking, how like what is the pitch of your speaking voice, you can pretty much indicate the voice type. I would say yes and no. Maybe in 80% of cases it works out. Probably if you hear like that, it is a high soprano, or like, yes, there is a coincidence, but no, there are also exceptions to that. And you can't always tell, yes, go by that. So it requires certain, I would say, experimenting and lessons and figuring out. So, yeah, I mean, what I would say probably is the best, yes, so try to find a good throat doctor. How are they called? Phoniatrist, right? Right?
Vocal coach.
Yeah, no, it's not vocal coach. It's like the MD. It's the phoniatrist, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
and just who does this research, who has seen many singers, and who can help you out, probably distinguish your real voice type. I would say this is like very, very, very helpful, because then you at least know, oh, there is some kind of science in that. Okay, I mean, I trust the science, and like with those voice coaches, I mean, they still have their own tastes. They still have their own impressions, how things should sound. With doctors, it's different. Doctors, they just go, but what they see. They don't have any personal feedback, okay, they see this voice
Mhm.
chords. Oh my God, there are 3 more singers who have similar and they are mezzos. So for me, it's probably something which would help. Otherwise.
I know exactly what you're saying because when I had my vocal coach for years, she asked me what my vocal range was. So she did the whole range, the piano, do, do,
Hmm.
all the way to
Yeah.
the high, right? And then she figured, okay. And I have done falsetto, like high like this,
Hmm.
and then low like baritone, and then mid range. And my vocal coach also said that I was a baritone as well. Like I could do baritone and tenor, so baritone.
Hmm.
And then you have the there's so many vocal ranges out there. But I want to ask you, how do you deal? Have you ever had what they call vocal nodes, like they're nodes that appear in the back of your throat that because you're straining your voice and then they have to be removed? Have you ever had that problem with that?
I know what you're talking about, and I'm actually very lucky I never had it. Never. So
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's my intuition, which helps me, or the fact that for 7 years in National Opera I sang an alto, which is probably a safe mode, even if you're a soprano, because
Hmm.
sopranos, especially the first ones, they work hard as nobody else does in the choir. That probably saved me. And even now, when I'm still hesitating whether I should go to this high range and everything, but no, I just probably am very lucky or very smart,
Mhm.
you always say. So I try not to do which I don't feel comfortable, which I feel is against my nature. That's all. And also with high range, right? Especially, uh, which I actually, something I learned like not so long ago, you never push. High range is literally finding the right resonance and the position of your throat, and it never goes by pushing. That's all.
Mm.
The whole range doesn't, but it's a little bit of different mindset, and especially like as a mezzo, that's why probably they say mezzos and tenors are the most difficult voices to train, because
Hmm.
you go against nature a bit. So baritone and soprano, they are voices which are given by nature, and mezzo and tenor is something you train. And you very rarely find a tenor who has a free high range by nature, especially if it's a dramatic tenor or spinto tenor, right?
Hmm.
They literally go, like one single note. It may take months for them to figure out how to do that. And this is what I actually have seen, because I'm not a very good expert on male voices, but I just have friends and I talk to them. And yeah, and that's what they also say, difficult is to train some voice which is not a nature based voice, right? As I mentioned. But yeah, the thing is, like, what's the most important, probably, uh, it's kind of very challenging to figure it out on your own, especially if you're a beginner. Very difficult. You have to have a good teacher who will literally figure out how to tune you, how not to harm you. And yes, when you are probably having this basics, or where you understand more or less how things are functioning, then you can try on your own. But still, the issue is you don't hear yourself as well as your coach does, right? For example, for me, like with the high range, what was a revelation for me, for me it's thin. It's literally, a small tone which is sustained by the breath. It's not like how I do the middle range or low range, not at all. No, it's super small, but like when you listen to a recording, it's huge. And this is what's strange about that. You, even when you sing, it's very dangerous to listen to yourself, because you will not be able to understand based on how you hear the voice inside you, how the audience will comprehend it. And that's what probably is super challenging. And yeah, so there is also a saying that, like, if you want to become a good opera singer, you have to have good voice intuition, it's called. So that's why they say you shouldn't be smart, you shouldn't be very intellectual. No, you have to understand whether you are on the right path or not. So it's intuition, or feeling whether you're in danger or not. But yeah, I mean, there were people who told me I don't have any intuition. I was told, I'm too smart. I was told, like, oh, you're good in maths, you will never be able to make it. Like, you just have to close your head. But maybe, but with myself, I learned that probably it's a bonus for me, because I always analyze whether it's good for me or it's not for me, whether I feel comfortable. And now with this whole dramatic soprano experiment, as I call it, right? I understood, for me, my endurance actually got better. So I recently had a gig, I think it was like 2 hour gig. Yes, and I had to switch from opera to jazz, from jazz to pop, from crossover. And I didn't feel tired. So that's why probably it's a good indicator that you're on the right way. So just just trust yourself, and either I'm lucky or I'm smart. But as I said, yeah, as I mentioned, I never had issues like with the throat, with like throat problems. So probably, yeah, I do have intuition a little bit.
I'm like looking at your song "Cry Me a River," and "My Love" is totally on Natalia Sticko like, but it's beautiful. And then I went and heard several versions of Nessun Dorma. Like, you say you love jazz. How do you jazz Nessun Dorma? Would you know how to do that?
I never tried. Let's be
Be like
realistic, right?
Nessun
I
Dorma.
mean, I just think, like Nessun Dorma, probably you can't really jazz it. I mean, I never tried, but I think it's just, first of all, the rhythm is not like really jazzy. I mean, then you need to change, probably even the rhythm of that. I would also change like Italian language, because to me, Italian language is not something which is appropriate for jazz, right? So Italian, it is appropriate for opera. It is the best language for opera, right? Because it has this clear vowels, right? While in jazz, there is lots of speaking. There is lots of speaking on the pitch, right? And then like you just give the color on the pitch of your voice. So that's why, I never tried. I can give it a shot probably someday. But yeah, I just don't find it appropriate. That's all. There are probably some tunes, right, which you can't rearrange for another style. Even though probably if I gave it a shot, I would. But to my mind, this is something which is connected to my classical training. And then it's like, I know like Puccini composed that, and for me it's like a little bit, oh, I can't change it into jazz. That's something, let him rest in peace, as I always say. Probably not something he would be happy about if you try
Yeah.
doing that.
Puccini is turned out, and Nessun Dorma is quite a famous piece. Did
Exactly.
you? I've actually never heard anybody sing the English version of that. Do you know the English words?
I never heard it. Never heard it.
None shall sleep, none shall sleep. Even you, O princess, in your cold room. Watch the stars that tremble with love and with hope. And when I was looking at the English version, Nessun Dorma only means none shall sleep.
That's correct.
And the last words set stars at dawn. I will win. I will win. I will win. I tell you one thing. I think it's beautiful as Italian opera, and I've never heard
Correct.
it sing in other languages. But looking at the English form, it's like I haven't seen anybody sing the English version, Nessun Dorma. So it's like, why don't you just go up there and just sing Nessun Dorma in English and go, none shall sleep, and it's beautiful either way. It's a great number from Turandot. I love it. Um,
True.
Tell us about the stress that you feel when you sing and how you deal with that. Like, is there a song that's so difficult for you to do that you just don't do it, or you just try to sing it in a different way or different tonal range, jazz maybe?
Um, for me, of course, singing mezzo and singing low middle range with a couple of tops is way much easier than sustaining soprano, at least for now. Uh, what I would recommend and how I do myself, right? If I practiced enough and I have already worked on the algorithm, on the plan, how it should be done. So, for example, I know here if I don't have enough breath, then okay, so I need to take a breath, but make sure, the next phrase is not that loud. So, for me, right, probably because I am a mathematician partly by my brains, right? I have this so-called step-by-step algorithm, when it comes to singing an aria. But I'm telling I do have that. But whenever you're on a stage, things happen, and of course you don't stick to that 100%, right? Uh, what I do, right, is like whenever I feel like things are not going as planned and I don't go by this algorithm, right? Just think about the music. Think about the emotions, right? So some of my opera colleagues, they say I'm too emotional, I give too much acting, I do too much movements. But to me, that's a safe mode, and that helps me to make sure the song will be performed, right? Because, for example, if I stand still, there were attempts for me, then I stand still and sing. I just lose this vibe and I lose like the emotion, For me, that's why, honestly, for me, it's way much easier to sing a performance than to sing a concert or a competition, right? Because whenever you have this acting aspect, you are in the role, right? And you have also certain acting tasks on stage.
Mhm.
So you just don't stand there stupidly, looking at like not knowing, what should I do with my hands and everything, right? So you have a plan and you like at least this acting plan, not singing plan, right? And for me, this is what helps. So that's why I'm saying, whenever it's even a concert performance, I try to think about that as a staging thing, right? So I don't think about that as a concert. I try to understand like the personality of the even the aria I'm singing. So what's like in the brain of this person, right? Why is there piano there suddenly, right? So, for example, even if we go into Puccini, this Vissi d'arte, which I have recently performed, right? So it's a soprano piece. So she's a singer and she's singing like I lived for art, I lived for love, right? And that was actually, I got into discussions with my Italian voice teacher, right? So he explains me that's a prayer. I said like yes, but and he's like, and it's very intimate, and whenever you perform it, like you always remember that it's like an Italian woman talking to God, right? And like probably they're but this was for me, it was a revelation, because he said like, oh, they're not that emotional. I mean, I remember Italians, they're super emotional,
Mhm.
and for me, like, it was like very strange. So you stand there, like intimidate, and I see all those colors, I see like Tabadi. Oh, yeah, Tabadi is probably close to what he was explaining to me, right? But what I had to do, I had to, when I sing this aria for helping me out perform that, I just think, so okay, so what I would do in this situation? So you are literally desperate, so you are asking why and why, so I can't just be, very intimate and everything. No, I just need to know why, what has happened, why did you treat me like that, because I can't just go there and like pray on my own, right? For me, these like words are devastating. So that's why I'm just saying, like for this particular piece, like the whole mindset of Tosca, right? Like that's what helps me even to do this piece separately.
Mhm.
There are some other singers who say, oh, if you have technique, you always go by technique. And yes, I know brilliant singers who are 100% technical and everything. But then you ask some people who are not connected to the opera about this particular thing, they're like, that's pretty boring. That's what I'm saying. Just find your own, find something you are special at, right? For me, it's going through from the acting perspective, of course, plus having a technique. For some other people, they will always think of technique, they will always like remember when to take the breath. And I'm not like that. I tried, but I'm not like that. I still want to project the emotions. I still like to convey the emotions. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. The most difficult is, of course, soprano pieces because it's new. So I'm singing like a little bit over a year, right? So I just still try to figure out my way. But whenever it goes back to mezzo, then I can just pour my soul. Then I can just open my heart for music that I can just dig into, and then I can just do whatever I want. Like, yeah, it's like probably this is just the trick, when you struggle with high range, then you go back to your old self, and then it like your life is way much easier. You just appreciate what you are given by nature.
That's exactly correct. I'm reading here that you shared the stage with some opera greats such as
Mhm.
Jonas Kaufman, Russian mezzo Elena Blastosova. Can
Correct.
you give me a little bit? Oh, Christina Opales.
Hmm.
Wow. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what they were like? And did they kind of say, oh, I don't like Natalia's voice, or Natalia, in order for you to match me and in order for us to harmonize, you have to sing it this way? Like, can you explain what, for instance, Jonas Kaufman, what was it like to sing with him?
So with Jonas Kaufman, I was singing one gig in Monte Carlo among us. So it was, I think, a rich guy from Russia. His wife made this present for his birthday party, so they rented this fancy hotel there. And like it was back in 2013, and back then Kaufman was considered to be the best Jose in the world. So they invited him, they invited Alina Garancha. So it was a private event, which I accidentally got into. Not accidentally, no. It was there had to be a choir there, and that's why we were invited. But what struck me, right, in terms of Jonas, it's just a gig, right? Some rich people want opera, but he still treated that as a full production. So he had this responsibility and accountability like nobody else would have. Because
Wow.
Alina was a little bit chill, right? Like, let's be realistic. But he just like, he doesn't care whether it's, whether it's La Scala, whether it's any other opera house, whether it's a gig, he still gives 100%. That
Wow.
was back in 2013. That's what struck me. So he showed up at all the rehearsals. He never missed one. He was never late. So he was always on schedule. So he just treated it as a full-time opera production. That was for me like amazing, because I know, it's a gig. Everybody has gigs, and sometimes you just don't give 100%. Let's be
Mhm.
realistic. But he was like working as always, as I have seen him like on YouTube. And also, what was amazing about him, he was super down to earth, right? So there was no diva complex. So yeah, I was in choir back then, but I never felt intimidated by him. So he had great respect for colleagues. He wanted to make sure everybody has their own place, so he doesn't, cover anybody. So no, that was like for me, it was such a such a great surprise overall, right? Actually, Yelena Obraztsova, Russian great mezzo. She was already in her, I think, 70s, right? It was 2014 or 15, yeah, when she sang in the Queen of Spades. So she sang I just forgot like the English name. So this old not Duchess, yeah, old Duchess, I think it's called, right? But yeah, so for her, it was also for me, it was amazing that she's like so kind-hearted to colleagues. She's not bullying anybody. I know probably when you are at this level, you just don't have time for for intrigues or whatever. You just come and do your job. And probably she was at this. I mean, she was already a great name, right? And she was in her retirement period. But it was such a joy for me, and I felt all these good vibes from her. And of course, the voice wasn't the same as she was young, right? When she was in her prime. But still, you could hear this experience in her voice. You could hear even as a duchess, she just gave this duchess uh duchess, how it's called in English. So she was just a duchess, she was a duchess in her prime, right?
Mhm.
And that's why, like whenever you stand with those people, you just uh of course there are different characters, and there are people who worked with other singers. They say some of them are divas and some of them don't respect choir. I was lucky. I never faced this, like in terms of when I had a chance to work with great, right? So, but characters are different, and for me, it was amazing that I could literally learn from them. And I know it comes with experience. Of course, Elena Brastova, she could, I mean, like, she was just a personality on stage. Just by being near her, you just felt a part of this whole, greatness, guilt, or whatever you call it. And yeah, just learn as much as you can, and just see what they do, how they sing. I mean, I was very much interested in like the projection of the sound, because she was also a mezzo. Just standing on one stage was probably a remarkable experience overall.
Do you think because of the Russia war against Ukraine that they're treating Russian opera stars and Russian musicians differently?
I don't think it's going on now, because I think there was a period, right, when opera directors all over the world, opera theater directors, so were asking for singers to take a, to just how to say, to point out their side. So whether you are against, and that's why some of the singers, like Netrebko, for example, she got in trouble because she didn't express her position straight ahead. So she waited
Mm.
for a couple of, and then I think she got kicked out of the mat because, right? But yeah, there were like periods when, for example, some of the there was a pianist who was a young prodigy, so he actually got his concerts canceled somewhere in Canada, I think, and he was actually even against, still canceled his whole concert because there was a Ukrainian community, right? I feel it very, very, very horrible overall, right? And especially with people of arts, who some of them are not connected to politics, and let's be realistic, some of them don't have this capacity to analyze and to understand what's going on overall. Of course, war is horrible, that's definitely. But some of them, yeah, and especially those who have a family there, right? And who have projects like abroad, for them it's just making, it's just like making them being stuck in a trap. So you want them to condone that, but like they have a family over there, and if they condone, and like, so they got all the projects canceled there, and they're like, they got in trouble because they said something they shouldn't be telling. And this is what's actually horrible, and to my mind, it's something which Russia, so it has taken the same, I think, path as they took like in 1939, yeah, when they were deporting people, when you didn't have freedom of speech, right?
Mhm.
When you were afraid like that somebody would knock on your door, like, and just deport all your family because your neighbor didn't like something about you. Yes, happened, right? And nowadays I see, probably after a couple of months it's got a bit better, because everybody understood, there are singers there who are just singers, who are just artists, who want to perform, who want to share their art, right? And I see, for example, the Met, they were doing Konegin, so nobody banned Tchaikovsky, right? So I see also Russian singers singing in Europe. So, so hopefully there is now a better strategy about all that, not to literally, spit into their faces, because they are not like, they can't do anything about it, right? Yeah. And I'll tell you more. I have a good friend of mine who has a Russian passport, right? And when this whole thing started, he just jumped on the car and just, and just just like, just drove all over the Europe, right? And like, because he's like, he's like, I can't just like live in the country where these things happen. It's like, I don't have freedom of speech, like I never elect. And this is like, what I always say, it's some kind of a things which is devastating for artists, right? So whenever you have to pick a side, right? And yeah, but I see, I now still see that, like, things are getting a bit better, and hopefully, hopefully eventually, all the, also what I noticed, people started like immigrating from Russia whenever, they have an opportunity to live somewhere abroad. Yes, that's also happening. So yeah, just praying for talented people really not to be somehow encountered by all that. So for them just to make sure, they still can perform and they still can share their arts, share the talent. But yeah, it's just devastating when you still have a family, there, and it's horrible.
Yeah, have you ever heard of it's called Flying Birds or something? And what they are is they're a group
Hmm.
from Ukraine, and they were quite a great band. And after the war, Russia invades Ukraine, it ruined them. They could no longer perform. It's just terrible because here they were playing, and then suddenly they can't even perform anymore. Everything's gone. Their Ukraine is gone. They're from Kiev, right?
Hmm.
So one sat was devastated that their whole music and band just that was it for them. I just kind of feel bad about that. Um, so now the fellow Latvians, Christine Opale, Marina Rebecca, and
Hmm.
Elena Galanka, what are they like to sing with? How did you feel with their presence?
I probably already mentioned, right, that every singer has their own tricks and has something that makes them special. And that's why, in terms of these three singers, females, I would say they are very different in terms of what makes them special, right? So if we talk about Christine, right? Christine is 100% a great actress, right? And she never actually has never hidden that she goes by acting, and like if she had a chance, she would end up in Hollywood, not on the opera stage.
Oh
I think she
wow.
must, yeah. And that's why for her is like, so she portrays the character so well that like you forgive her the voice faults, which everybody has, and she also does, right? Because she immerses you so much in the character, and like you literally believe like that you see Tosca, that you're okay to shut down your eyes, like oh, this high note. That's why I'm saying for me she's unbelievable in this particular uh ability, right? For example, if you take Garantia, right? Garantia is a 100% technician, so she will never take an aria that she is not certain about, right?
Hmm.
And that's why whenever she went to a concert back in Latvia, she always took 100% stable repertoire, which she knew she would be able to perform in any condition. She would never risk. That was her motto, I would even say, right? And that's why for her, like even if you compare with Kristen, yeah, so she's more a singer who is 100% stable, 100% emerged in technique. And that's why some of the people they say, oh, she's lacking probably acting or something. But that's what I'm saying, this is her strong part. You will never be 100% in all the, how to say, all the package of characters or characteristics which you need to become an opera singer. Of course something will prevail, right? So for her it's technique. Yeah, and Marina, actually, in Marina, I think she's trying to combine both. By the way, yeah. So, but yeah, so that's why. So I'm saying like they're very different. Like two of them are and like they are even different in terms of sopranos. One is like a spinto soprano, another like is a lyric, another is a mezzo, lyric mezzo, right? And that's what I'm saying. It's just amazing, how different they are, and like still they have work, still they get casted, right? And just like they're not like 100% similar, they just each have their own distinguishing characters. That's what is amazing about them. They're different.
And Elena Golanka has probably the same issues as well. Totally different type of different quirks, and I
Elena
guess.
Garantia, yeah, actually there is a, how it's called, there is a gossip, there is a rumor, right? There's a rumor back in my home country that she's a soprano. And I think actually she also mentioned it herself in a couple of interviews that like as a lyric mezzo she could just start her career, and like when she did, like it was 20, she was 21, 22, I think, when she even did like BBC Cardiff of the World. So lyric mezzo, right? So it was for her like a great choice back then because there weren't that many lyric mezzos. I think the most famous one before her was so it was Marilyn Horne and Teresa Berganza. So these were two who were like very, and that's it. Cecilia Bartel, but Cecilia was like very much into Baroque, so it wasn't like,
Yeah, wow, that's Cecilia Bartoli. Oh, wow.
yeah,
I
yeah, but
loved her voice.
yes, I mean she's also considered to be a lyric mezzo, right? And for Garancia, so her voice teacher, right back then, I know who it was actually. I worked with this woman a couple of times. Yeah, so she literally said like, if you want to become a dramatic soprano, you need like more years. So you need like 5 or 6 more years.
Mm.
So yes, so that was a good choice which she made back then, which helped her to do a tremendous career as a Mozart singer, as Rossini singer. I know she was a great Rosenkavalier, right? Strauss. So it was just a very good choice of the Fach overall. But yes, there are rumors that go around and circle around. I don't know. I haven't seen her voice cords. Didn't talk to her MD who like examined her or whatever. But yeah, I mean, she was still is a tremendous Mozart singer. I think as a mezzo, as a lyric mezzo, I can't actually think of anybody else nowadays who did it better than her, right?
You do know a pop singer who's also a lyric mezzo? Are you ready for this?
Should I guess? Okay, just tell me.
Britney Spears is a mezzo soprano.
Oh, that's interesting. I think I heard that. Yes, sometime. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And not only that, also Lady Gaga, I think,
Hmm.
has the same sort of vocal range. But Christina Aguilera is also a lyric mezzo soprano, believe it or not. Oh yeah, some high class here.
And I'll tell you even more. There are some opera coaches who think that the lyric mezzo is not a real voice type. That's a lazy soprano.
Well,
Right? That you see how crazy it is.
well, there must be a difference between lyric mezzo soprano and a mezzo soprano, but only you opera singers know the difference.
That's why I'm saying just go by the technique always.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. You did say that you weren't born in Boston. You were
No, I
born in,
wasn't. I immigrated 4 years ago.
yeah,
I was born in Latvia and spent all my
Latvia.
life there before I
Wow.
turned like 30 or something, 31.
How long did it take you to learn English?
My mother is a teacher, so I was speaking English since I was 3, 4, probably since I was born.
Nice.
And I had a very like strict and good teacher back in my home country. So mom, she gave me the conversational basics, and my teacher, from middle and high, so she put like I would say grammar basics. So that's why I had the both combination. I understood the structure of the language, and I also quickly got how to speak it properly.
But have you ever sung in your native language?
Of course. I mean, when I had to graduate, like I had my recital, solo recital, it was like 9 languages altogether. I counted.
That's how about Hebrew? Do you know how to sing in Hebrew?
Never sang in Hebrew. That's yeah.
If you go to the YouTube channel, look up Joshua Aaron. He's a Hebrew singer.
I will.
And I'm like, I want to learn to sing. Like, I'm trying to sing Italian, but I can sing a few songs in French and few songs in German. And but my native, like I'm half Dutch, half Hungarian.
Oh, nice.
Forget about me singing Hungarian because that's the most difficult language to learn. But Dutch and actually to learn the language is not bad as long as you have the part of it with the throat. So yeah.
Scheveningen. I lived there for 6 months, that's why I know.
Heel goed.
Is goed.
Heel goed hoor. That's
See,
good.
ik ben een ontwikkelingsstudent.
Oh,
Forgot.
nice. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about Maestro Paolo de Napoli. What his conducting was like, and did it work out for you?
So actually, he's not a conductor. He's my voice coach.
But
But
he
he
uses
calls. But
maestro in there.
no, actually, all the like very many singing teachers, right, with a good career. They also use this term. And
Really?
actually, like there is a term even for female voice teachers. They call themselves maestrina. So it's not like just a name for a conductor. Yes. So the people who are in the music business, and even you can be a artist, right? So especially pianists often call themselves like that. So yes. So it's not only for a conductor. It's just
Maestrina.
probably maestrina.
Wow.
Yes, it's if you are a female. Yeah, so if you're a female conductor or you're a female voice teacher, I have heard this a couple of times within the course of my career. Yeah, so right, so he's not a I mean, he can conduct. I know he can, but yeah, he's a voice coach, and that's how. Yeah, in Italian, that's I think it's just right. It's just a term or whatever. Like I would say, probably like when we have your Majesty or something, or you say like it was like what was it like if you get a title like in the British royal family, there is like some kind of titles you get like right, and I think it's something similar to the classical music, right? So yeah, so it isn't only connected to a conductor, right? So it's just like an overall term.
I noticed you so like I'm looking at this and thinking you hold a bachelor degree in vocal performance. Yeah, that's fine. But you also have a BSc in information technology and IT engineering. And then I look and I notice that you work in the IT field as a technical writer. Like I got family members who are technical writers.
Oh, nice.
And when I saw
Colleagues.
that, I kind of connected with that.
Colleagues.
Um, do you still, I guess you still do that as a part-time job as well and still sing on the side? Are you planning to perform singing? Do you do both?
So no, I do both, and I do both. There is a certain reason why, right? So for me, when I do only singing, it's makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me think too much of that. And when you do something, how to say, when you overdo, it's also not good, right? And for me, a technical writing, it's some meditation. I would say I do it very well, and I was very much into that since I was in college, and I used to help my classmates, course mates a lot back then, especially when they are genius software developers. But they can't explain how it works, so I was the right person to do it, right? And yeah, so it just allows me to it's just my safe mode, first of all. Yes, so it's financially something which helps me sustain in case there is a period when I don't perform, so it's a source of income. And second, yeah, so it's just like a way to switch. There are people who cook, there are people who knit, there are people who do documentation for software developers. So that's why there are people who do fitness, right? But yeah, I mean, this is somehow it's my lifesaver. Yeah, because it allows me to use the second part of my brain. Like there's one part of brain I don't remember which is what. It's one part of brain which is which actually make sure all our artistic characters are well developed, and another one is like mathematicians, mathematical logics and everything. Yeah, and like when I do both, I feel in harmony with myself, and I feel like I'm still growing. I'm not like stuck in my development, because when you're singing too much, my personal recipes, and there are some people who disagree with that, I don't do it well anymore because it's too much. So my ears are too much submerged in listening and analyzing, and it doesn't do good for me, right? And that's why they say, even like with sports, right? Yes, of course you perform all the time, you train and everything, but there has to be this chill period, right? Just to gain your spirit and just to gain your just to make your body rest, right? And for singing, for me, it's absolutely same thing. And for me, it's also sort of sports, just with your voice cords, plus with whole other things like as acting and like which involves certain brain cells. Yeah, it helps me. And like I noticed myself when I started when I actually so I for 7 years I didn't do it. For 7 years I just did do singing, and it didn't end well. Among Us, I didn't start singing better. No, I started singing way much better when I started combining. Then you're on a schedule, then you can't have a so much rest as you do like when you're in one profession. Like you're on a strict schedule, and which helps you overall, right, to succeed in all the spheres that like are surrounding you, because you just become better at planning. That's all.
How did the pandemic affect your performance plans? I noticed that Crimea River was done in 2020. That was when we were in the
Yeah.
midst of the pandemic. Did you perform that? I noticed that girl that I thought that girl in that video was you, but it's someone else.
Mhm.
Um, were you there when it was filming, or was yours?
I wasn't involved in filming, so I just recorded the song.
Mhm.
How it affected, of course, for this certain 3 months, there was nothing, there was zero. But, however, I got a couple of gigs, so I was like the lucky singer who still got hired. So one gig was I had to sing a birthday party outside, a birthday party. Like there were 4 songs I had to perform. So for a Harvard professor who was retired, so her daughter wanted to make it special for her because I know she was quarantined and she couldn't go out. So that was something which I was really happy to do, and I didn't care about the remuneration about that. I was just happy I could make a person happy. And how also it impacted my life now is that back then I was working for Amazon actually as a technical writer, and everything went remote, and it still is remote, so I can dedicate more time into singing and into, so I just don't have to literally spend 3 hours on the road every day. So this was also a good impact. Yeah, and like whenever you don't have these 3 hours anymore, you can just record, you can think, right? You can do something, and that was a blessing for me. That's why whenever people say what's your reaction to that? It's like, yes, I lost contracts which already were pre-arranged, but I gathered something else. So I gathered like more free time from my day job. And yes, just also like with the help of my husband, who literally helped me to understand it's not about only finding your agent and just doing opera. So he actually proved that there is another way, right? Because especially with agents, it's very tricky. There are very many opera singers who want to get discovered, right? So I should have started to think out of the box earlier, right? I was too much immersed, like, oh, I'll do all this opera, I will just run around auditioning. Yeah, for me, it was just a good kick, right, to understand that like there is not only opera in this world, and you can do it in another way, and it's not obligatory to find who will find work for you. You can make your own things happen, you can record, you can organize your own concerts. So it's all about finding your audience. It's all about finding the people who are okay to spend $1. As I always say, if you have like 1,000 people who spend $1 every month, there you go, there's your audience, right? So yeah, that was just some new uh, great period which helped me to reconsider what I was doing and how it should be done further. Yeah.
Well, I
So
know I noticed from other sopranos and tenors that during the pandemic, many of them actually, a tenor had gotten COVID and his voice was destroyed for 5
mhm.
months. And another soprano, she had to take a job as a gravedigger. And I asked her, "Did anybody recognize you?"
Crazy.
And she says, "Yeah, one person recognized me," and they were like, "But many of them had to take other jobs, and many of them actually they went online and they started singing online, and
Hmm.
and then that's how they started a YouTube channel, and now everyone's coming out of it, and especially it's what people want. Like I can't wait to perform again. Um, yeah, and so when I saw that you were a technical writer, I thought, "Whoa, I had two members of my family who were technical writers." I'm like, "Wow, we have something in common."
Nice.
But you got a lot of accolades here. One of them, Natalia, is that you were in 30 operas. What was your favorite opera?
Macbeth by Verdi. And
Really?
yes, and only because I liked the choir part of all this opera very much. There's lots of female choir. That was actually the first opera I went on tour with in Spain. I sang the choir, I sang the
Mm.
witches. So there are very, very many witches there. And it somehow makes it super special because even like as a choir member, you try your personality like in some different amplitude, in a different character, which probably you never would consider if you like in your normal life. And the music is outstanding. And overall, yeah, I mean, Verdi is my number one composer in opera. If we go back to the opera, and yeah, it was just super exciting to perform abroad with that and to perform like a character which is totally in contradiction with my personality in life.
Tell us about Vincerto.
Hmm. Uh, that's a project which was born in our family, and my husband is the creative mind behind that. It's
Oh.
a Italian opera experience, how we call it. Uh, its main goal is to get people introduced into opera. So we are aiming at getting people on board who have never been to an opera house by way of introducing them to the well-known melodies who probably everybody has heard tons of times on TV in a commercial or overall somewhere else, right? So it's classical, right? So there are only classical pieces from the opera there. So there's of course
Wow,
Nessun Dorma, there is Tosca, Visidarte, there
it's
is
amazing.
Gilda, Caronome, there is La Nozze, the La Nozze, Voi che sapete, there is Brindisi, Verdi, there is Verdi Veil Song. Yes, all this top Italian opera pieces included into one show. And what also makes it special, so we don't do it as a regular concert, right? So with every single aria we perform and like doing acting around that, we're just telling a story how this genre was. So literally we are telling a story, right? Like of a crowd on a party, on four people on a party, and how they literally interact with each other, what's happening next. So there's jealousy there. There's a tenor who is like into two girls. There's his buddy, who is like a female dressed as a guy, who's like, why, you have all those girls, then then two girls get upset because the tenor sings a duet with one and with the second one. Then a diva soprano shows up and is like, no, I'm just now singing Visidarte, you can just get out of there. And then the tenor shows up to sing his like devastating aria Lucia and Le Stelle, because all the girls don't no longer want him anymore. And it ends with another, okay, now let's go back to party, right? Like there's the Veil Song, and here's the belly dancer for you, right? Like, so because the Veil Song is all about singing about queen who was the wife of Muhammad, and literally he didn't recognize her when she was sitting covered with her face. So, and eventually, yes, so she reveals herself, and that's his wife, even though he was thinking, he's chatting up another girl. So yeah, just something very similar to understand, because of course it's in Italian, not everybody understands Italian. So what we're trying to do is telling the story, portraying emotions, and literally with our acting, just making people being related to that, just making sure, like this is something which happens to every person, right? This is something, which happens in life. Yes, on the party, there is jealousy aspect, there is like this flirting aspect. There is like the periods when you get devastated in the party, a little bit drunk. So this is like the whole aim of Vincero, just making opera approachable. And of course, like if you are able to see Vincero and if you like it, that's a possibility that the person will end up in a full 3-hour production in an opera house. So this is like our main goal, making opera approachable.
But you mentioned your husband had was a brainchild to that. Like, how did he come up with it?
Actually, he wanted to do something on our own, right? So I don't have to run around Europe auditioning. And also he because he's a native Italian. I mean, he's an Italian American, right? So that's something he wanted to do for Italian culture, for promoting Italian culture. And as we all know, Italy did suffer a lot during COVID. So it's his move to make a production that empowers Italian culture as well as introduces people to the opera. And like probably it's his heredity. And also he's a huge fan of musical theater himself, even though it's opera, but opera, it's all how it started, right? I'm not a fan of musical theater, by the way, just in case. I just like different numbers of that. But for me, like, yeah, I mean, I still am more, and probably this is my classical influence from childhood. Yeah, so he just, and we had also we have a couple of great friends who wanted to do something with us, right? Who are overseas, who are great singers, who also who got like problems after COVID with work and with everything. Just wanted to make everybody back on track again. So it's just like the right people, right time, right opportunity combined together, and this is how this project was born.
Yeah, that's excellent, because I'm looking at this and it premiered in Hollywood in June.
So much great feedback from Hollywood, right? I didn't expect that. My husband did, I didn't, right? Because literally the Fringe Festival is like more into theater. So of course there are musicals there are some other opera performances, but it's like kind of challenging to come there with classics, right? It's something that people still, you don't know how it will be treated, right? You never know whether it's a good bait or not, right? But no, I mean, it went extremely well. So I mean, we actually got praised by one critics. I don't remember his exact name. Maybe I'll be able to find it quickly, right? So we got the platinum medal. A second, what was it called? just, yeah, you see, I mean, I'm like, it was like so great, well received, that I just started to, forget all this great feedback we actually got out of that, right? So yes, so where was that? Yeah, so it was like the critics who is considered to be very, very strict there and who always say something bad, you know. But we were like very lucky to receive like platinum medal from him because of, something he said like must see, and something which people should be going to. And yeah, there were a couple of other feedbacks, and like we didn't receive any bad feedback, so which is like kind of impressive for something like we got nominated for, I think, best international show or something, so like, or 4 nominations. Yeah, outstanding. And like still there was the one video operator who was saying, oh, and he films every single show, right? And he says, oh my god, that's the best I have seen so far. Maybe, it's like maybe he tells this to everybody, but no, like he has a friend who's like, no, 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 he really liked you guys a lot. And yeah, and also we were always, maybe, we also left a good impression because we were always on schedule. We always had our stuff together, like we had literally to set everything up like within 5 minutes. So yeah, and now the next step will be Providence, right? Till July 23rd, 27th, and 28th. So let's see how it will be received there. But we already had all this boost like from Hollywood, just, hoping that like it's not only Hollywood. If you got well received in Hollywood, there is a good probability that everything else would also be how it should be.
I totally agree with that. But didn't you just say that your husband was in the military?
Yeah, he was in the Air Force.
But he's doing the opera thing? That's kind of weird. How did that work out? Because of you? He wanted to make
He
sure.
was very much into musical theater, and I think he even played Judas back in high school.
He
Yeah,
was?
no, he's
Jesus
like,
Christ Superstar?
yes, he
Wow.
knows all the, yeah, Jesus Christ Superstar. He can sing along, by heart, and Phantom he
Same
can
here.
sing along.
Yeah.
Also, it's like Butterfly, which is the musical, how it's called,
Oh, yeah.
Miss Saigon. So he's like very much into that, right? So right, and the thing is like, as I told you, I don't even have a voice for musicals, right? That's like
Mhm.
different genre, which probably requires different training. Yeah, so he got like into opera because of me, probably. No, he was introduced. He was in all boys Catholic school where they went to see Turandot, and he was also very much impressed by this genre, right? But yeah, it's a combination of his desire, right, to help me, his desire to promote Italian culture, his love for music. He also does karaoke brilliantly with certain melodies, like Mac the Knife is his number one. Uh, so it was just probably a combination of all the factors. Plus, he's retired now, so
Mm.
he has lots of time he can dedicate to making things happen. Because otherwise, that's what I'm telling always. When it comes to producing your own stuff, it's another sphere which requires so much time, so much efforts, requires dedication. That's why I, for example, couldn't do technical writing plus singing plus, like organizing all the stuff, because it's literally a full time job. And I would even say, it's, to my mind, it's way much more complicated than just going out and singing, because it requires multiple stakeholder involvement and making sure things are going as planned, and financially, planning all the stuff out when you don't have a separate accountant. So yeah, kind of full-time job now. He
So,
wanted to retire, but no, now he has a full-time job.
so to be a military veteran, they have a certain time when you need to retire, or like what rank did he actually achieve before retirement?
Oh, you know what? I think it was like, what is a staff sergeant? But he was medically retired, and then he worked for oil industry, so like organizing security there all over the world. I mean, whenever, yeah, and just among us, he was a CIA contractor for a while. So yeah, so he just whenever he could retire, he just used this opportunity, because I kind of think, it's overwhelming. You can't just do it all until until you're 65.
So you don't think he has a voice to be able to pursue singing, I guess, huh?
He could.
So you actually heard him sing, and how is he? For
That's
between one
actually,
and
he has a brilliant voice for music theater. And he's actually, whenever it's I never heard Bobby Darin. Like, I mean, I did hear him, of course, right? But I never understood it's Bobby Darin. So whenever he sang a song and then I heard the Bobby Darin doing that, I didn't understand who's who.
Oh yeah, Bobby Darin. Wow, that
Imagine.
guy.
So yeah, the timbre is similar. Like I would say 95% similar. So yeah, even me with my trained ear, I couldn't understand who is who. And when I heard I heard him live, and then I heard the recording. I was thinking it's the same person.
So
Crazy.
going back to where, like being a technical writer, like, are you working from home?
Yes, on
Okay.
remote, fully
It's not like I
remote.
was going to say, like, if you're working in the office, people would say, Natalia, as soon as you come in the morning, can you go, good morning? Oh, good morning.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm fully remote. I come from time to time to say hi and to sit in the meeting just to show, make an appearance, as I call it. No, yeah, that's I'm saying, for especially for technical writers, it's easier, whenever you just don't have to be on site, really.
Do you sing at home? I guess.
I rehearse at home, right?
Do
Because
you have your own
otherwise, right?
recording
Like I have a
studio?
studio, right? So it's exactly, like COVID helped us actually build a studio. So that was all my husband, figuring out what's the better equipment for that. I wasn't involved. I'm telling you honestly. I was just, I just think I just need to. That's why, yeah, we built a small studio, not like that fancy, but it does the job, as we tell. Yeah, so I rehearse. I have still my remote lessons with Italy. So it's 7 hour difference. So I need to make sure, there is enough time in between my daily job. Yeah, and that's why I'm saying, because I don't have to be in the office, and that's 3 hours less due to the traffic in Boston. It just allows me to use this time wisely and do something for myself and for singing in particular. So Ernest Kearney, that was the critics who were super, super, super strict in Hollywood. The T-Evolution LA. If you can just like, yeah, somehow. I just like that's something of better names. Like I'm getting old.
I'm not getting old.
Yeah, so it's Ernest Kearney, yeah.
Ernest
Kearney.
Kearney.
Yeah, he was the strict Hollywood critic, yeah, which gave us a platinum medal.
Wow. And so he actually he liked it.
He liked it. Yeah. I mean, there
Wow.
was like the whole article, yeah. Just maybe I'll be able.
How did you manage 30 operas? Like, what was the first opera and what was the last one? Like, what? Okay, well, you have Vincero as well, but what was the very first one of those 30 operas that you did?
The very first one was The Masked Ball by Verdi. It was choir back in 2009.
Oh, that long, eh?
No, like when you are in a choir in a European opera house. So they have this so-called repertoire system. So you have probably 5, 6, 7 operas which they show. So it's not like here. I mean, Metropolitan works the same way actually, because there are like theaters would just have a production. So I mean, it's similar how Broadway probably functions, right? So there is one production which they show every day. Then they, when they pick up and do something else, right? But yeah, I was working in the theater which works similar to the Met. It's called the repertoire thing. So you have like 5, 6, 7 operas, even more, which you just perform within the season. And when you're like in the choir, especially when you join that, there's like 4 or 5 operas they ask you to learn for the first like 3, 4 months. And for the masked ball, they gave me 2 weeks to learn it. But most masked ball, like there is not that much choir there, so it wasn't that challenging, right? And also, I had a great motivation to learn because that was like the guest performances, as I mentioned, right? So for Carmen, to perform with Jonas Kaufman in Monte Carlo, I could learn Carmen in 3 days, right? And like, yeah, and that's why I'm saying. And actually, was also for me, it was a blessing that it was an alto. It wasn't a soprano line, right? And alto, for me, at least, I even if I repeat multiple times, it's not something which tears your voice apart very quickly. That's what I'm saying. It's my blessing that I didn't have to sing soprano in the choir. And that's, yes, so that's what I'm saying. It's just a skill you learn pretty quickly. You just learn to learn new music very fast. And that's why actually now for me it's kind of challenging because I just don't have this training mode all the time. So yeah, first was hard, second was like a bit easier, and then so on, so on. And then, like, yes, as I mentioned, like for certain composers there is a system you stick to because, right, it's the same composer, then you approximately know what will await for you, right? So yeah, so within the 7 years, so first was like masked ball, and the last one I think was something modern, some Latvian modern opera. It was, I think, yeah, some Latvian modern composers, Eric Eschenwalds, Ia Moretti. Yeah, so very different music. Yeah, very different. So yeah, so 30 in total, even
Well,
more maybe.
yeah, wow. Well, that's amazing. So I was looking at this about how you remember the family went into debt to buy your piano and
Yeah,
squeeze it in your studio apartment, and
yeah.
then you started playing a song on the piano, solfeggio.
Actually, solfeggio, that's like a term which they use in the musical schools to
Mhm.
teach you how to read music, how to read the rhythm,
Wow.
understand the rhythm. So later it's transferred into musical theory, but like, yeah, solfeggio is just like the name of a lesson which you have when
Oh,
you join the musical school. So literally how to read music. They teach you scores. They develop your ear. Yes. So for example, the teacher plays on the piano. So, and then you literally, it's called, and then you need to write in music, like in scores, what's played. Or for example, you are given different music, like, small, when you're a kid, they're just like, they train you to read the scores, different types of scores. Yeah. So this is it. Yeah. So in solfeggio, yeah, so I just learned it, I'm just like, I learned the instrument, so that was considered to be like the primary. And solfeggio, it was to be, how to read music and how to understand the theory, how to make it work. And yeah, and then you're like getting a little bit older, then you're also giving musical literature, then you learn about composers, their life, and so on and so on. This is like the classical way how they trained kids back in USSR.
that's excellent. We were so
Yeah.
happy that you were able to join us on the stage today, and, can you take questions before we end this stream altogether? And
Sure, of course, with pleasure.
excellent. Okay, so the first one is, have you ever been to Toronto?
Toronto, no, but I have been to Canada.
Because, that we have some pretty good, operas, and you said you don't like musicals, but I love musicals. I wanna be in a musical, actually.
I know my husband also likes musicals, but for me, it's something, probably I like this classical aspect of it more. But even though I like different numbers, there are numbers which I really like, but not the entire musical.
Someone wants to know about your, the Mon cœur s'ouvre à ta
Hmm.
voix French song that you sang.
Yeah.
Why did you untake that one?
It's the most famous piece for a mezzo soprano. And it's from the opera Samson and Delilah. But I like the Sarah in particular, she actually seduces him. So she seduces Samson because she wants to betray him, and she wants to understand the secret he's having, why he's that strong. So in this aria, she just uses all her feminine energy to make sure she gets the most out of him. Eventually, she betrays him, and things happen. But I don't think about it further. I just love it because it's my number one pieces, and overall, it's considered to be the most beautiful mezzo pieces ever written.
Okay, so the last question is, if you were given the, supreme task next Friday, let's say,
Hmm.
that you have to sing, opera number, whatever it is, how do you prepare for that? When do you start preparing?
If it's a completely new piece, which I have never performed, so I just start with reading the text in rhythm. So that's the first part of that. If it's Italian, then I don't need coaching by a language coach. Or when it's German, yes, I will probably ask my coach who I know well, just to make sure I pronounce it well. So first step is just pronouncing the text in the pitch, and not even in the pitch, just in the rhythm, right? Then second aspect of that is just learning the music on the vowel. So for me, it's ie because I have like a big voice, and just for me, it helps to concentrate that well. For another person, like or it just depends like on what voice you have, what is comfortable for you. So yeah, second is just like learning the music itself and then third is like combining it all together. So this is like the three steps which I take whenever I am introduced to new music or new aria I need to learn. So these are the three ones. And whenever you have like text plus music together, and when you are feeling stable with that, then you add musicality. Then you pay attention to what's written in the scores, whether it's a piano or forte, or a cilerando and everything. Then it's like the fourth step. And when this is all combined, fifth is like acting. Then you figure out uh, if it's an aria, right? So you read the libretto, you try to understand what was in the mind of this hero, and just try to try to find the right nature. So yeah, five steps. Sounds
And
easy, but not that easy.
yeah, it was so nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate hearing all about your experiences with music, the different vocal ranges. Excellent.
Thank you, Chris Robert. You were a great host. Was a real pleasure to talk to you.
It was a real pleasure talking to you, Natalia. I really
Thank you.
appreciate. So, thank you very much, everyone. Let's wave goodbye.
I'm Natalia Stiko. I'm a classical crossover singer. My number one genre is opera. I was a member of Latvia National Opera Choir for 7 seasons. I was a participant of Young Artist program of Latvia National Opera for 2 seasons. I would really love to see more people getting introduced to opera, loving it. Because I try to make my performance an experience for you. I really input all my heart and my soul, all my life experience to everything I do. Like hearing a familiar melody they heard it tons of times on the TV performed live in front of them. That's probably what makes it, I know this one. My invitation is come, enjoy, sit back, relax, open your heart for music, and I promise I will not disappoint you. But I also tried myself in jazz, and I loved it a lot.
Keep it right there.
Probably that's a real blessing to have Matt B.K. He's an outstanding Steinway artist. He's a great pianist. He's a great composer. He's a great singer himself. And like to learn from him, to have collaboration with him, to do some projects with him is super impressive. Because I learned a new side of music. In jazz, I just immerse myself in music and I just go and belt it out and just give my heart to what it is. My website is nataliastiko.com. My music can be found on Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, and other major sources of streaming.